thank you for allowing me to be your Attorney General. As you know, I won my race last time by 280 votes. In the closest statewide race in Arizona history. They don't call me Landslide Mayes for nothing. But a W is a W, isn't it? And here we are, and I could not have done this at all without you. In fact, I think I'm looking at about a big chunk of that margin of victory. So thank you. Thank you. And you know, when I ran in 2022, I promised that I would be a lawyer for the people, for all of the people of Arizona. And I believe that we have followed through on that promise. You know, it feels like a decade ago at this point, but remember when we took office in 2023, we were having to deal with that insane 1864 abortion ban that we defeated. We defeated that. My office, we stood up the first ever reproductive rights unit inside the Attorney General's office. We went to work, we delayed the implementation of it at the Supreme Court long enough to allow the people of Arizona to ensconce abortion rights forever in our Constitution. And then, as you know, as many of you know, one of the most important jobs, and I don't know if we have it. Do we have a slideshow? No, it's okay. No, one of the most important jobs of the Attorney General's office is to protect consumers. And so, you know, I immediately went to work to reinvigorating our antitrust laws. Yes, we have antitrust laws in the state of Arizona, and we're enforcing them. Apparently, my Republican predecessors didn't realize that, but we do. And we immediately went to work fighting the proposed Kroger-Albertsons merger, remember, which would have combined Fry's, Safeway, and Smith's into one giant conglomerate grocery store, and would have destroyed thousands of well-paid union jobs, would have created more food deserts in the state of Arizona, and would have increased grocery prices at a time when we definitely can't afford that. So it was important that we defeat this, and we did defeat that merger in federal court. We also have been protecting consumers in the rental space. I was the first state attorney general to file a lawsuit against a company called RealPage and 9 major landlords that control more than 75% of all apartment units in the valley, including out here, and more than 50% of all the apartment units in Tucson. And what they were doing was RealPage, which is a software company that has an algorithm, was they went to these landlords and they said, give us all of your proprietary data. All of it, the colors of the walls, the paint on the wall, the location of your apartment building, what you used to charge prior renters, all of the things that you would never give to your competitors. And then RealPage would gather all that data, put it into its algorithm, and it would spit out a high price that all of those landlords agreed to charge. You know what that's called? Price fixing. I call it old-fashioned price fixing using new technology, and we are going to put an end to it in the state of Arizona. By the way, we've already gotten $1 million settlement from one of those landlords. $1 million that's going to go back to their renters. Probably people will be getting more than 2 months worth of rent back from that one landlord. We got 8 to go. So that's real relief for people. You know, we also are working so hard to protect our precious water supplies, right? Yeah. We cannot afford afford to do dumb things with water anymore in the state of Arizona, can we? And so, some people criticize me for it. Republicans not happy with me, but I decided to sue the Saudis in western Arizona. I should say the Republicans in the legislature are not happy with me because they're so pro-corporate mega farm. Republicans in Arizona love that lawsuit, and Democrats. But look, they were sucking so much water out of the ground. The Saudis were for one alfalfa farm to send alfalfa back to Saudi Arabia so that they could feed their cows in a country that banned that kind of water use. Same topography, same climate. And they were banning it, and then they came over here and did it here in Arizona. And so we're going to put an end to that through that lawsuit. So one of the other really important jobs of the Attorney General's office is to fight and combat drug trafficking. And we do that at the AG's office. We've been fighting the Mexican drug cartels. We've seized more fentanyl pills, 27 million, than any other AG in the history of Arizona. I'm super proud of that. And normally, in normal times, we do that with our federal partners, right? The ATF, the FBI, DEA, even HSI. But lately, under the Trump administration, you know what they've been doing. They've been taking the federal agents out of Arizona that I need to be helping me fight the Mexican drug cartels, and they've been sending them to places like Minnesota and Washington, D.C. and L.A. to chase after hardworking landscapers and gardeners and housekeepers. That's what they're doing. Donald Trump is making Arizona less safe, not more safe. And so we've got to keep sending that message. So I decided to write Pam Bondi a letter about this. Because the DEA comes under, DOJ. And so I said, "Dear Pam, please send me an additional 60 DEA agents." Not only did they not send me 60 additional DEA agents, they took 60 out of Arizona and sent them to Minnesota and Minneapolis when all of that insanity and terribleness was happening. And that is absolutely awful, and we've got to make sure that we stop that come November 2026, right? We take the House and maybe the Senate. We will see. Both locally and federally. Let's do both. So these are all the things that one of the other things that we work very hard on at the AG's office is fighting fraud of all kinds, including in our state voucher ESA program. This is a $1 billion out-of-control boondoggle of a program that has zero guardrails on it, and because of that, I am now having to literally prosecute criminal fraud inside of it. We have prosecuted multiple people who have made up ghost children and fake birth certificates to draw down ESA funds and vouchers. That's what Tom Horn is allowing to happen. That's what he's allowing to happen. And then, of course, he made this insane decision to not audit any voucher up to $2,000. So parents can spend up to $2,000, period, without any examination or audit by the Department of Education. So that, of course, is why we're getting parents buying flat screen TVs, lingerie, trips to Disneyland, diamond rings, and condoms. Now, true, I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's true. And happened. And Donald Trump was elected. Something none of us wanted to see happen. And, you know, you made me the 23rd Democratic Attorney General in this country. And I don't think we knew back then just how important that was going to be, but we know that now. It has never, ever been more important to have a pro-democracy Democratic Attorney General in your state. And so after Trump was elected, of course, he had put all the unconstitutional things that he was going to do. He had laid it out, right, in a document called Project 2025. So we had been sort of tearing that apart, going through it. And we met together 2 weeks after the election in Philadelphia, in the city of our nation's birth. And we recommitted ourselves, all 23 Democratic AGs, to being a bulwark to get us through to 2026 and 2028 and being that bridge to get us back to sanity. And started thinking about the lawsuits that we would have to file, the things that he would probably do. And of course, right away it started happening. And we have been fighting ever since. And as of today, I have now filed 40 lawsuits against Donald Trump. And you know, I mean, it started with birthright citizenship, right? Started with birthright citizenship. You know, the Constitution says what it says. It says that any person born in the United States is a citizen of the United States of America. And it took a Reagan-appointed judge, in the case that I co-filed, 25 minutes to declare that executive order by Donald Trump blatantly unconstitutional. And to quote the president, we've been doing a lot of winning ever since then. We have won 80% of the 40 lawsuits that I filed. And we have saved the state of Arizona $1.5 billion. Because remember, he wanted to defund Head Start. And we stopped him with a lawsuit. He wanted to defund AmeriCorps in Arizona and across the country, and we stopped him with a lawsuit. And he wanted to defund Meals on Wheels. Meals on Wheels. Just think about that. And we stopped him. He even wanted to defund the police in Arizona. He wanted to defund some of our efforts to fight the cartels, and we stopped him on that. So these lawsuits are so incredibly important, and I want you to know that we're not going to stop. I mean, the AGs are deeply committed to this, and we work well together, and we like each other. I know that sounds strange to say, but it's really, you know, it's really important when you're engaged in something that is a team effort, and it really is. It's important to check your egos at the door, and we do that. And we actually meet together, all now 24 of us, because we won Virginia. I think it might be 25 or 26 by the end of November, but we meet, the 24 of us meet together, each of us, by Zoom every other day to plan this litigation, to scope out what we think is going to happen next, what we're hearing is happening, to figure out, you know, where we think we need to file the litigation, to talk about things like protecting our election in November. Yes. And so just know that your Democratic AGs are going to be ready for anything. And, you know, I mean, I always get this question, it's interesting. I always get this question from reporters. They'll say, well, Kris, don't you think you're suing Donald Trump too much? And they'll say, well, you know, we won Arizona by 4 points, or, you know, whatever it was, 5 points, 4 points. And don't you think and aren't you afraid you might not win your re-election? Aren't you afraid of retaliation? And I always say, well, first of all, because of people like you, I'm going to win my re-election. But I also say, look, I'm a 54-year-old woman, and if all I do with the rest of my life is spend the next year standing up for American democracy and our Constitution, then I'll be okay with that. I really, really mean that, and I know you feel it too. You feel it too, right? And every single time I file one of these lawsuits, and we got another one coming up this week, so it'll be 41 by the end of the week, maybe 42. I find myself thinking about, some of you have heard me say this, I find myself thinking about what previous generations of Americans who died and fought and sacrificed for this country must be thinking about this moment that we are living through. And I believe in my heart that those previous generations of Americans are speaking to us across the ages. And they are saying to each of us, fight. Fight for your country. And do it right now. Because 2 years from now is too late. Now is the moment. And once in a generation, I believe Americans are called upon to stand up for our country, to fight for our Constitution, and this precious, irreplaceable democracy of ours. And now is our time. We are that generation. We are that generation. And, when things feel dark for me, when I start to get a little down, I think about this. I think, you know what? We're also blessed to be that generation. I mean, think about it. How often does a generation of Americans get called to stand up for our country? How often? Not very often, but we sure are being called. Now is the time. Now is the time for all of us to fight, and I'll be with you shoulder to shoulder throughout that fight. So thank you guys for